Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and my mission is to use this space to bring content to you to help you understand your struggle with food and break free from binge eating. There seems to be a common pattern that I see in people's journeys when it comes to binge eating. And in the beginning, they are struggling, they're very lost, confused. They also feel like they're the only one who's behaving like this around food, and they think there's something really wrong with them. And then maybe they hear someone talking about binge eating, or they read about it somewhere, and everything that person is saying really resonates, and there's a relief, there's a release of shame when they realize, oh, actually, this is a valid problem. There's other people out there who are struggling, and maybe that means that there is a path to get out of it. So then there's this hope and a sense of belonging somewhere. You feel like there are people out there who get you. That's often the stage where you consume a load of content, but maybe you're struggling still to put it into practice. And then it's like there's this little voice in your head that goes something like, but what if you're just using all of this as an excuse to keep overeating? Because actually you're just greedy. Everybody else, they have an actual problem, but you're just making excuses. You're just justifying the fact that you overeat. This is getting a bit ASMR-y. Sorry, I quite like ASMR, but I know some people find it a bit creepy. So I'll go back to talking normally. Oh dear. This idea of greediness has been coming up again and again. Everywhere I go, people are talking about it. So that was my nudge to do a video about it. So I want to talk about this idea of greediness, what it is, how our minds often try and convince us that we're greedy, and maybe how we can look at it differently. But before I begin, if you haven't checked out my podcast yet, it's Life After Diets, and I co-host it with Stephanie Michelle. We talk about all these subjects that I talk about on my YouTube channel, and we go into them in more depth. I share a lot more of my own story and experience on the podcast because there's more space to do that. And we've also been doing a number of Zoom live events to bring people together and to connect and to share stories and interact about this stuff. Recently, I've done a few videos about connection, so I'm eager to connect with you guys. I want to have a back and forth. It's all very well doing these videos, but I'm just talking to my phone in my room, which has got easier because if you look at some of my early videos, I'm like a deer in the headlights and my face isn't moving when I'm talking. And I didn't really know how to edit, so I'm trying to do it all in one take. So sometimes I do feel like I'm having a conversation with you guys, but it would be great to actually connect and meet you. So I will pop the details below if you want to find out more about that. So back to greedy. I looked up the word and read a few dictionary definitions of it, and what came up again and again was this idea that greed is a desire, a strong desire for something you don't need. Well, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty human to me. I would say a lot of the things in life that I want or desire, I don't actually need. And I think the moralization around this word has been added in the way we use it in language to mean a really negative thing, to mean that something is immoral. Because, I mean, let's face it, money, which is often greed is used around, money and food, those are the two things the most. And both money and food have had enormous morality meaning placed on them over hundreds and probably thousands of years as well. And the thing is, we live in a time now where you can have and get more than you need in many areas of life without that having to mean that somebody else gets less. And I think historically that's probably not what it meant. If we look at post-wars, when there was rationing, when food was more scarce, it wasn't as abundant as it is today. If somebody had a strong desire for more food than they needed and they acted on it, in a lot of circles that could be quite possible that would mean someone else would go hungry, someone else would go without. And I think that's, I'm guessing, I'm no etymology expert, but But I'm guessing that's how it really took root. This idea of wanting more that you need means someone else goes without. And I'm guessing for the majority of people watching this, when you binge, it doesn't mean that somebody else has gone hungry because you binged. And what did surprise me about the definitions when I was reading about what greed actually means is it isn't even about the action. So it's not about whether you eat or not. The actual term greed is about the wanting and the desire for the food. So we throw morality in and we're being judged for this desire. And I think we are judged for it culturally, but most of that has been internalized. So when you're on your own and you've got that strong desire for food, there's no one out there judging you because they don't even know that you've got this really strong urge to binge or to consume a lot of food. But you know, and you've internalized that message. So I did a post recently on Instagram, and one of the things I said in the post was about binge eating is not your fault. And somebody came back and said, it is my fault. I brought this on myself. And that belief, I think, is tied into the greed thing. Like somehow it's my fault that I want more food than I maybe physically need. In response to that, I would simply want to ask a question to you. Would you choose to be this way around food? I mean, I can't hear you because it's not a two-way conversation, but I'm guessing the answer is no. Who would choose this for yourself? This is making you really unhappy. This is, if you're watching my video, you've got this far into this one, chances are this is a real problem in you that affects the quality of your life. You wouldn't choose it for yourself. Therefore, it's not a choice, it's a trap. And yes, you fell into the trap, but the odds were stacked against you because you didn't know the trap was there. Before you ever struggled with binge eating, you didn't know it was a thing. You certainly didn't know how it felt. So whether your binge eating was triggered by dieting and restriction, probably the case for a lot of people, or some kind of trauma, or not getting your needs met when you were younger, and food taking on all this meaning of comfort and safety, all these things that food has become that creates this really strong desire for more food than you physically need, is not your fault. It wasn't a choice. For me, that is the whole message of this video. So then, okay, well, it's not my fault, but I'm here. So now I have some responsibility for how to get myself out of this trap. Yes, but that has to be done really carefully because you shamed yourself and you keep shaming yourself for falling into it in the first place. And maybe others shamed you and that was internalized. But either way, you're the one who keeps shaming yourself. I did this video about how to take responsibility for your binge eating recovery without beating yourself up. Because this is what happens the moment you try to take responsibility. Quite often you set yourself unrealistic expectations. You get very frustrated and you're very quick to label that you failed. It's difficult to measure progress. And all these things, all these challenges around this journey lead you back to shame and lead you back to, it's my fault I haven't got myself out of it, even if you accept it's not your fault that you got into it. I think the key question to ask yourself on this path is, how do I take responsibility for my healing without triggering shame? That's what communities do. That's what the self-compassion work does as well, and connection, realizing you're not alone. That's what letting go of those unrealistic expectations, perfectionism, all or nothing thinking, all those things are blocks, and you just keep bashing your head against these blocks trying to get to the other side of them, rather than going, let me step back and survey, what are my obstacles? What stops me from being able to do the things that I say to myself that I want to do? That perfectionism one is a biggie. Getting it right, always wanting the clean slate. Done lots of other videos about that. But the video I've done on responsibility, I'm going to link to now at the end of this video. So if you haven't watched it, it's not a popular video of mine because I don't think many people look at that and go, yeah, I want to hear someone talk to me about responsibility, because it sounds like it's going to be a lecture. I hope you can trust me by now to know that it's not. It's said with love and support and kindness and gentleness and all of that good stuff. But anyway, I hope this was helpful and I will see you on the next video.